You're listening to the Iterators of the Imperium.
Hi, I'm Miss, and I'm here with my co-host Ryan, and you're listening to Season 2 of the Iterators of the Imperium podcast, the podcast in which Ryan is the expert on Warhammer 40K, and I'm the noob trying to learn about the Warhammer universe. So Ryan, what is today's topic?
Right, before we get to that, there's a couple of things we have to mention first. With the launch of this episode, we also have a Patreon page if anyone would like to support us and get some extra content in that deal. And we also have a Discord set up as well. If you guys want to keep up to date, chat with us, just talk amongst the community, whatever. Just wanted to make sure I mentioned that because I knew I'd forget if I didn't. Got a gigantic, bold font at the top of my notes. Before we start, Patreon and Discord.
I was like confused, but yeah, it's good to get out of the way, just get that information out so people know. And guys, Ryan has set it up himself, the Discord, and I'm telling you, it's professionally set up. It's crazy the stuff you can do.
It took a lot of work to make it look reasonable.
Yeah, so go check that out, please.
Yes. So I figured. Oh, actually, I should explain. We did the spin the wheel at the end of last season, and it landed on Space Marine chapters. But in the interim, we had a bit of a think about it, and I decided that there's a lot we need to talk about before we start deep diving into more advanced stuff about Space Marines, because you've basically only got humanity's storyline at the moment, and there's a lot of other groups that you know nothing about so far. So we really need to fill them in before we start going into any one topic too much. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this season is actually going to be a kind of more generalized overview of different factions and different races and stuff. And then we're going to continue with the spin the wheel thing the following season. Just so that everyone's aware. So this season's all going to be different races and stuff. And different factions. So I wanted to try something. I wanted to try a little test with you, Mez.
Okay.
I'm going to give you a quote, and you have to try and guess what the topic is.
Oh God, I knew the thing. All right, guys. The thing is, I knew Ryan was gonna mess with me with some stuff in this new season. So you know what? I'm not prepared, but let's go, Ryan. Let's do it.
You got this. I believe in you.
All right, come on. Yeah.
What's faster than a war buggy, more killy than a war bike, and flies through the air like a bird? I got no bleeding idea, but I'm gonna find out. What do you think?
What? Wait, who's behind that? Who's behind it? Oh, you mean?
It's a guy called Cog the
orc,
Fly
right?
Mech.
I would reckon it's an orc.
Right? You think an orc?
Is it?
It is, yes.
Oh, I'm so good. I just feel like that's yeah.
Yeah. Today's topic is gonna be orcs.
Hey, let's go! Yo, I banked that one,
Yeah, you were never going to get the individual guy. I just tried to find the funniest vague orc quote I could find. So, that is actually a quote from a guy called Cog the Fly Mech. He's the pioneer of the Death Copter. He's the guy that made orc helicopters.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Yo, hold on. What was his name? I gotta search this guy.
Cog the Fly Mech. I don't think there'll actually be a model of him, to be honest with you.
Oh, well. Alright. I mean, I could imagine, like, a big, ugly-ass troll. Yeah.
No, not troll. Orc. There's a difference. It's funny that you say that, right? Because I have to make this clear. It is orc with a K, not a C, and not an RU. Because in 40k, orc is spelt with a K. In fantasy, it's with a C. And in Age of Sigmar, they changed the name to Ork.
Oh, God, that's just annoying.
Well, orcs. So ORRUK. So there is a reason behind it. I don't know. I think they kind of just changed the flavouring of them from fantasy to 40k, which is why they went from a C to a K. But also, for Age of Sigmar, they renamed a bunch of the races and stuff so that they could copyright all the different names so that no one else could use them. If you have orc, everyone has orcs, because orcs are a vague and well-known thing because of Lord of the Rings and stuff like that. But
in many fantasy games, it's just like Orkz. Yes,
exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
But if they rename it slightly and make them exactly the same, they can copyright it and then sue people. So
that's a good money machine.
it's a good concept. I love it. So making it very clear, this is the one with the K.
Alrighty then.
Right. So you know a little bit about where these dudes came from, actually, which is interesting. So the first thing, everyone knows about orcs, right? Orcs fight for life. It's their whole thing. It's their entire gimmick. They just fight, right? 40k orcs get bigger every time they win a fight, by the way.
Oh, I don't think you've said that before.
Yeah, no, they actually get larger every time they win a fight.
Oh God.
Yeah.
That sounds like Dragon Ball, you know, where they just get stronger every time they
Yeah,
lose, but-
orcs are kind of Saiyanish, I'm going to be honest.
Oh God.
Yeah. So
Alright, nice.
I have mentioned in the past that they are mycelia-based life forms, so they grow from mushroom spores,
Yes.
which is hilarious. And they weren't originally orcs, as we know them. They were one of the races that the old ones raised up to fight against the Necrons way back in the war
Yeah.
in Heaven. So I've mentioned that part. They were called the Krork at the time. Krork. Krork. Apparently the Krorks were 12 meters tall, and they were armored so heavily with such advanced armor that apparently it's like on par or better than the armor that humanity had during the heresy.
Bruh.
So
And
these
that's
dudes
a
were
long
outfit.
time after. Yeah,
Oh,
that's a long
God,
time
yeah, yeah.
after. Oh God, that's overpowered for the time.
Yeah, but to be fair, they were fighting the Necron, so you kind of need pretty good stuff.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, they were like the
Yeah.
vanguard against the Necron. Like, you might have a gun, but we've got 40 billion of these dudes. Just gigantic orcs. Like, hi. So at some point in the millennia between the war in Heaven and the Dark Age of technology, when humanity got totally effed up by AI, somewhere in there, they gradually like devolved to become the orcs that they are now. Because the first report of humans meeting orcs was during the Dark Age of technology, and they were basically the orcs that we see now. So,
Yeah.
at some point in that time, they just gradually devolved into the normal people orcs. So I've broken this up into a bunch of different sections. So the next one is physiology. So orcs make up the main body of the greenskin race, but there are other creatures within the same racial group that are based off of the orcoid fungus, right?
Yeah.
So orcs make up the most part. Then you've got Gretchins, also called grots, I believe. Then you've got snotlings and squigs.
Ugh. What are these names?
They're all pretty minging. So orcs are your typical big old green dudes with shoddy guns and axes that scream and murder everything, to be honest with you. They're quite does what it says on the tin. But we will get more into the actual orcs of this further on. We're going to go through the other ones first.
Yeah.
So snotlings are little like goblin creatures. And they are like right at the bottom of orc culture.
Yeah.
And they basically take care of like farming and animal rearing for the most part. They raise the squigs and they grow mushrooms for the orcs to eat, which comes off quite cannibalistic to me.
I was about to say, because they are mushrooms.
Yeah.
They're eating their spores. Like, what are they doing?
Yeah, I don't quite get that either, but you know, do what you need to do, I suppose.
I mean,
it's really
good
easy to
protein.
grow mushrooms, I guess. So
Yeah.
pretty plentiful food supply. The snotlings don't really do combat because they're tiny and frail, basically.
Yeah.
They're also not very smart, so they're kind of like only good for doing exactly as they're told when it's shouted by someone much bigger than them. They're not great use, you know, for anything that requires much thought or power.
No, but let me foreshadow a bit. You're gonna tell me about them in war, where they're used as the first guys to go out as bait.
No, you're close though. You're not far off. It's actually still part of the same part of my notes. There's a thing called a shock attack gun, which is not at all spelled correctly. That basically makes a small warp wormhole. So it opens a portal right in front of the gun, which ends basically wherever the gun's aiming vaguely. and they throw these guys through it, right? They throw all the Snotlings through this little like warp rift that'll take them out, assuming at the enemy forces, but you know, being exposed to the warp basically just ravages your mind. So by the time they come out the other side, they're like insane and feral, and they just start biting and clawing everything nearby.
That's a good strategy. I'm not gonna lie, that's a good strategy.
It's a great strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just come out the other side stabbing anything they see. It's great.
Like any substantial enemy that gets attacked by them are not gonna be faced, but it's annoying as hell still.
Yeah, it's still something they have to deal with, you know?
Yeah.
Or like
it takes time, right?
it would work well against like standard human military. So against the Astra Militarum, it would work great because their armor isn't great enough to protect them massively from being stabbed, especially by a tiny goblin that's mental. You know what I mean? Like there's not a lot a normal human could really do about being stabbed by a wormhole goblin. Like Space Marine probably just like slap it and turn to paste. But a human, no chance. Like they're gonna get a fair set of humans if you use them correctly. So not a bad strategy, but very funny.
Yeah. So that was a good foreshadowing by me.
Yeah, you got a solid guess in there. I like that.
Hey.
Alright, so Gretchens are like an orc slave race. They're much smaller than orcs. They have quite big heads for their size. They kind of look like a typical gnome from a fantasy thing, I'll be honest. But like ugly like a goblin. You know, if you mix a gnome and a goblin, you get a Gretchen, basically, or a grot, as people like to call them. And they have really sharp teeth. I don't know why. Also, they have really flat ears that flatten against their head when they're afraid.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, they basically just are usually owned by an orc that tells them what to do. And they just act as slaves. They're just either in groups working on something, being told what to do by an orc, or they are owned by a particular orc who they just do stuff for. Go get my gun, go get me some beer, go get me mushrooms, whatever. You just like, go get my bike. Like, you just tell them to do whatever you want and they go do it. So they're just like a working, they're a base worker class, basically, in this society. But there's only like 4 tiers to this society, so the worker class really does do a lot of different stuff, and it's very much whatever it happens to need done at the time, as far as the bigger guy tells you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although, funnily enough, some of them start their own businesses and stuff like that. Some of them brew and sell like beer made from the mushrooms. Some take bets on fights that break out and then just pocket some of the cash. Some of them make money just by looting battlefields and selling the stuff they find.
I mean, so they're not stupid like the Snotlings.
No, these ones are really smart. They're actually really cunning. So that's like their main defining feature, is they're not as big as the orcs, but they're smarter than the average orc.
Yeah.
So they are very handy. All of these races tend to do a bunch of different things, I'll be honest with you. I'm sure the Gretchens are typically the intelligent ones behind Orc Society, so they end up with a lot of weird roles to fill. But yeah, they kind of just do whatever needs done, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And my favourite one of these is the Squigs. Now, I fucking love Squigs. It's basically a big tadpole with legs and a row of teeth.
What?
It's really funny. Squig comes from the word squiggly beast, which I found hilarious. But they're not an intelligent creature. Like the rest of them are vaguely humanoid in intelligence, right? These ones are basically just an animal that happens to come from the same fungus root. So they just happen to be lumped in, even though they're like genuinely an animal. But they take loads of different forms, and it's great. So you have attack squigs, which are just, bitey mouths on legs.
Yeah.
They're just like big walking piranhas. They just bite stuff. Right? Then you get the stupid ones, like the bag squig. It's got a really big mouth and a really big stomach, so you can just tie it to your belt and use it as a bag.
Yeah.
There's the boom squig, which, if provoked even slightly, will immediately explode.
What?
Yeah.
That could be handy, but...
It could also be very dangerous.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, which is typically could be handy, but also is definitely very dangerous, is exactly the grounds orcs like to live on. That is a fact. Oh, the Squigosaurus. Can you guess what a Squigosaurus is? What's special about it?
I don't know. It sounds like a dinosaur or some shit.
Yeah, it's just a really fucking big squig. So they ride them into battle.
Oh god.
Which is great. And then my personal favourite is the bagpipe squig. It's a squig that's also a bagpipe.
I was about to say that you could play music on.
Yeah.
Oh god. Honestly, Ryan, I'm not gonna lie. The Orkz, right, especially with the way they speak, aren't they just Scottish?
Yes, they definitely are, yeah. I'm going to address something about that later on. But yeah, they're basically just Scottish. Like, they couldn't have been more on the nose with it as well.
No, the way they speak with the bagpipes as well. Are they wearing a kilt at some point too? Or
There's probably some that wear kilts, I'll be honest.
Do you like mushrooms, by the way? That's a sidebar, but do you like mushrooms?
Yes, I personally do. Me and the missus love some mushrooms.
Oh, God.
We do a lot of cooking with mushrooms.
All right.
But not the fun kind of mushrooms, just the food kind.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Just so you know, I'm not gonna indict myself in any crimes here. God.
Oh, no. Don't want to incriminate myself.
Yeah, couldn't have that. So that's only like a small subset of the groups of different types of squigs. There is literally a squig for fucking anything you can think of. There's flying ones. There's like loads of them that are for riding and stuff like that. There is tons of types of squigs. But yeah, so those are the four kind of main, or the things that make up the bulk of the orcoid races. Squigs, grots, snotlings, and the orcs themselves. We are going to get into the different types of the orcs as a whole a bit further in.
Yeah.
Orc-wise, orcs are genuinely just big, tough, somewhat intelligent fighters, and they come in loads of forms. But typically all orcs fall under one of 6 clans. So orc society is basically broken up into these 6 groups for the main part. There are extras outside of it, but they're less common. So the 6 clans are the Blood Moons, who are about as close to a merchant class as orcs are ever going to get. Because, can you guess what currency orcs use?
What currency orange? Oh, I have no idea.
It's teeth.
Teeth.
Yeah, teeth. With an F.
Oh, God.
Teeth.
Bro, are they a tooth fairy? What's happening?
Yeah, so the Blood Moons are the reason they're as close to you get as a merchant class is because the Blood Moons' teeth grow back faster than any other clans, so they just have loads of money as far as anyone's concerned.
I was about to say they're rich.
Yeah, that's it. That's their whole thing. They're rich. There's Blood Axes, which is another clan. These guys, none of the rest of the orcs think they're very orky. They kind of look down on these guys. They don't really trust them because they use stealth and tactics in combat, which apparently is not orc behavior. So the rest of the orcs are like, I don't trust those guys.
I mean, no, why would you? They're like, normally they're just stupid and charge into battle, right?
Yeah, these guys are like, all right, we're going to flank them. And everyone's like, you're going to what?
Yeah,
how dare you?
Sus. That's kind of sus. That's not our way.
Yeah, that's basically it. You got the Evil Sons. These dudes just love to go fast. They love cars and buggies and stuff.
Yeah.
There is a group outside of all the clans called the Cult of Speed, which are a very similar concept, but taken way to the extreme.
Yeah.
Like, these dudes will set an explosive charge under their ass just to see how fast they go into the air. Like, they are nuts. But same kind of concept. They like the fast. You got Death Skulls, which they're basically looters and scavengers. Is their whole thing. They raid battlefields after they murder people. Most orcs would just pick up the closest weapon if they lost theirs, or if they need a new one, and then just keep walking, keep charging. These guys are like, all right, well, we killed all the humans. Let's take their shit and sell it.
Yeah.
Yeah, or whatever the fuck else we can do with it. Then you got the Goths, which are close combat specialists. So basically, you're not going to find a gun on these guys typically, and if you do, it'll be like a handgun or a shotgun. You're not getting like a sniper or anything like that amongst these guys. Everyone's going to be running in with 2 axes, screaming and biting people. But they're fucking good at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the last of the main clans are the Snakebites, which, honestly, they're just xenophobic traditionalists. They're like, this is how orcs do stuff, that's how we're gonna do stuff, we don't need your technology. Like, that's just all they are about.
I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
That's it, that's basically their motto, but more violent. Because they're orc, you know.
If it ain't broke, then break it. You know?
That's fair. Yeah, that's not wrong. So a few of the kind of groups that are outside of these, so you got the Cult of Speed is one of them. You got guys called Freebooters that are basically just orc space pirates, which is fun.
Yeah.
You've got Feral Orcs, who are basically primitive orcs who aren't like involved in the overarching orc society. So like little backwater planets where a bunch of orcs got stranded at some point and just never really got picked up again and haven't bothered to, you know, try and leave on their own.
Yeah.
So they're just chilling. They're just living a quiet life, you know?
Yeah.
There's also extra groups that are all about, like, riding or hunting animals and monsters. Stuff like that. So, the orcs are pretty all over the place, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Orc religion is a fun one. We're going to talk about that.
Oh, God.
So the orcs have 2 gods called Gork and Mark. Right? There is a couple of potential origin stories. One of which is basically that they were actually just 2 orcs, and they just kept getting bigger because they kept winning fights till they just became gigantic and worshipped by everyone. And at some point, were just lost in space. So somewhere out there's a planet with 2 skyscraper-high orcs just punching the shit out of each other.
What?
There's a lot more detail to it. I just don't know off the top of my head, and I didn't bother writing it down because I'm not getting into orc god origin stories right now.
Maybe at some point. It actually sounds quite interesting, I'm not gonna lie.
It is, but it's really a down the line thing. There's a lot more to talk about first before we get into that. The origin of their gods really isn't like a forefront piece of information for the orcs. Like the Eldar, maybe, because like their gods are a big deal, but not really the orcs. They worship them because they're cool guys and stuff. So, Gork is said to be cunningly brutal, and Mork is brutally cunning.
Great.
So apparently the difference is Mork hits you when you aren't looking, and Gork hits you as hard as he can when you are. I also heard someone explain it as Mork will punch you in the face, and Gork will punch you in the back of the head as you fall backwards from it.
I like Gork.
Yeah, I like the 2 of them. They're quite funny.
It's like Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah, basically, yeah, but gigantic.
And violent.
Yeah. So some, like, priests and orc warlords and stuff have claimed to have visions from their gods. And orcs do believe in an afterlife. The Great Green, where if you've pleased Gork and Mork enough, you will be reincarnated.
Oh, great.
Yeah, there is one, I believe he's a Gretchen, who's been reincarnated like 5 times. Dude,
Wait, so they just get reincarnated in the same life? Oh, well,
as far as I can tell, yeah.
That's not for the better or for the worse, is it?
Orcs like fighting, so it's ideal for them. They get to fight more.
Oh, God. Oh, yeah, I mean, I'm not an orc, so... I mean, yeah, I get it.
Yeah. It works for them, man. That's all they need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever they're into, just leave them be, let them do their stuff.
That's it. Just hope they don't come to your planet and you're good.
I mean, yeah.
Remember, because they're spore-based, the only way to get rid of orcs once you have orcs is to
all
burn the
everything,
entire
yeah.
planet.
Kill it with fire. Like.
Hit the exterminatus button and just delete this planet off the maps. That also works for Tyranids, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's just a funny thing. There's an Inquisitor, who is a big deal in 40k at the moment. Or, well, was a little bit ago. Still kind of is. He's still important. But he started exterminating loads of planets in like the same system. But he did it to like 40 planets or something. Like a crazy amount of planets. He just deleted off the map basically. Because there was Tyranids attacking the area, so he went ahead of them and just started wiping out planets. So there was no reason for the Tyranids to go there because there was nothing for them to get.
Oh god.
Yeah, you need someone that gung ho to deal with orcs. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, like burning a planet to ash is such an effective strategy in 40K. It works in so many different ways. I love it.
I mean, depending on the purpose, I don't think it's exclusively that. Like everything, like if you want to get rid of it, just burn the planet.
Yeah, aye,
In
basically,
any
yeah.
situation.
Yeah. Okay, so different types of orcs.
Yes.
Right? So, top of the ladder of the orcs section of the Orc Society, you've got the war boss, the biggest, toughest orc around. And you know the saying, might makes right? Well, in orc culture, everyone knows the biggest is the mightiest. So, what he says goes.
I mean, he has won the most fights, so...
That's exactly it. He's clearly the toughest guy around. Do what he fucking says. So, the biggest guy in the area is the war boss, and he's in charge. You get the best weapons, best armor, and basically anything else they decide they want. And the WA follows them. Which is great. Alright, you got a few other dudes, right? Mm-hmm. You got odd boys. Odd boys take a few different forms, but they're just orcs that were born with some special attribute non-typical of orcs, right? So usually it's some kind of special knowledge that others don't have, but they're just born knowing stuff. It's really weird. So the odd boys are made up of 4 different types. You have the runt herds, which are slave masters and breeders. So they breed the Gretchen and the Snotlings. Mm. Right, so they raise those guys. You got the pain boys, which are the orc doctors. You got mech boys, which are the orc mechanics and inventors. Mm-hmm. And then you got the weird boys, who are highly psychic orcs. So they're the orc psychers. They're the magic orcs.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah. So those make up your odd boys. Then we have just boys, which are the typical orcs that aren't particularly special, but they get broken up into different categories, just so you know what the hell they are all about. So, you know, just the boys are just your usual run-of-the-mill big angry green murderers.
Yeah.
Then you got the odd boys, which are the hard boys, as it's supposed to be. They are heavily armoured orcs, and they're usually really well respected, but basically they're big and so is their armour. So they're really hard to put down, and they weigh a ton.
Oh, God.
Yeah. You got guys like tank busters, which are orcs equipped and designed to blow up tanks and vehicles.
Bruh.
Yeah, no fucking around with them. You got flyboys, which are ones that operate aircrafts, like the orc cop that we saw as an orc.
Yeah.
You got burner boys. Can you guess what they have?
Cars. Or fire.
Flamethrowers, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah. Then you got storm boys, which are orcs that use jetpacks. And there is a shitload more of them. Alright, I'm going to find the list, because I feel like we can run through a few more of these.
Oh, yeah, I'm down. I will say up until now, I don't know why I said car. I was actually thinking about something with... burner, you can do burnouts, but...
Yeah, that makes sense.
I feel like it's very telling in terms of their names. Like, you get why they get these names. It's very telling. It's like the Danish language, right? I don't know if you ever heard about that. The way that we name stuff in Danish is like very saying.
All right.
Like, to what it is. I don't know. I can show you a stand-up comedian who does like a good skit about this, but all right. You go on with the list.
Okay. So a few more of them. You've got looters, which are just orcs that loot battlefields and stuff like that in enemy camps. You got commandos, which are apparently the epitome of orc cunning. They basically work in small groups and go behind enemy lines and fuck stuff up from there. So they're just a tactical unit. Biker boys, they're just ones that ride war bikes. And then you've got guys like boar boys and squig hog boys. Boar boys ride war boars into battle. Yes, there are gigantic boars that orcs ride, obviously. And then you got the squig hog boys, which are they're orcs that ride four-legged squig hogs, which is basically a warthog version of a squig.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious. So those are your typical kinds of the generic orc, but like every orc will obviously have something they favor. So they kind of get split up into these categories just for organizational sake. I think it's more for the game than it is anything else. Because obviously the weaponry you have on the troop decides how they work in the game, how much damage they do, and how you roll to do the damage and such.
Yeah.
So I think that's the primary reason they're split up. Then you've got... Yeah, the final thing that we have about the actual orcs, how they're broken up, is the knobs. Which, by the way, is how you call someone a penis in Scottish slang. You fucking knob. Anyway, so they're the ruling class of Orc society. They're typically larger and more aggressive than orcs, or than the rest of them. And they act as squad leaders, and they get incredible gear and armor, or priority of it over everyone else. There's a few types of them, but they also, not only do they act as squad leaders, they also sometimes just gang up in a big group of them and just be bigger and better than everyone else, and go attack stuff, rather than just leading other people to go attack stuff.
Yeah, I mean, they sound like knobs. So.
Yeah, basically, yeah. So you got mega knobs, who wear huge mega armor, whatever the hell that is. I'm guessing it's just really good armor.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got flash gits, who have the weirdest, most exotic weapons and armor, so you can spot them a mile off.
Oh, God.
Yeah. You got knob bikers, who are just knobs that ride war bikes, but they'll do it in a gang. They form biker gangs. And then you got cyborgs, which are knobs that have had mechanical enhancements from the Pain Boys, either due to injury or just because they wanted it. So they'll have like a whole mechanical arm and stuff like that.
Yeah, like very cyberpunkish.
Kinda, yeah. That's a good point, yeah. So, the next we're going to look at is the Wa, which I think I've mentioned to you before. Like, the War of the Beast, it was a Orc Wa, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, one thing I want to clarify, I want to put it there, because I've wanted to mention this for ages. I'm 100% sure that the term Wa, which is W, 3 A's, GH,
Yeah.
it's always 3 A's. I'm 100% sure it's just someone shouting war in a Scottish accent. Just saying. But no one, I've never heard anyone else pick up on that, and I'm like, I'm 100% sure that's exactly what it is. Whatever. Anyway. So, a Wa is when a bunch of orcs get together under a war boss to go fight a war. Right?
Yeah.
The Was can range in different sizes. Some of them are unbelievably gigantic. Some of them can be quelled by a chapter of Space Marines pretty easily. But they're usually pretty large groups, since it'll be a bunch of orc hordes that have all joined together under a war boss. It's very typically not one group is the entire thing. It's usually a bunch of groups of orcs that have all got together because there's now a big dude in charge.
Yeah.
Yeah. I found a quote, which I found hilarious. This undertaking combines the aspects of a mass migration, a holy war, a looting party, and a pub crawl, with a bit of genocide thrown in for good measure. That's an orc Wa for you.
Yeah.
I just like the pub crawl in there. Just a bunch of drunken morons.
I mean, that's the best way.
It is. It's the best way.
That's the best way to motivate people, right? Just get them drunk and send them to battle. They won't think about the consequences.
That's it. To be fair, the orcs would think about the consequences, because the consequences, I get to fight things, and that's all they want.
I mean, yeah, and if you win the battle, you might get a beer. You could get even more drunk.
Exactly. You could steal their beer.
Oh my god!
We're gonna go raid that battle monastery.
Yeah.
Why? They have ale. By the time the guy turns around, the orc's already running up the hill towards you. You're like, that worked.
Ah, well. And if they die, Ryan, they just respawn or get reborn because, why not? And they can fight again. It's a win-win.
Yeah, I mean, it just works out, So since the war boss is always like the biggest, toughest, angriest, murderiest orc around,
Yep.
the fear he instills in the other orcs means that even warring tribes or warbands will join together under his banner to form the Wa. So that's really handy for the Orcs, because it means they have insane size of forces when it comes to actually fighting in a Wa. Which is why a Wa is such a threat, even against like Space Marines and stuff. But as is the way with Orcs, they typically end with a war boss dying, since they just fight until they come across something that can kill them. Because like, every time they're like, alright, we're going to form a Wa and we're going to go take over this planet, and they do it, and then they're like, oh, next planet, I guess. They just keep going until something kills them. So, unfortunately, the story with Orcs typically ends with the Orcs losing, because they don't have an end goal. It's not like a Space Marine chapter that's trying to retake a planet, and then they do it, and then that was that mission done. The Orcs just keep going, adding new parts to the mission, until they don't complete it. So, typically the Orc Wa ends with the Orcs dying.
Yeah, I wanted to add to that, because if you said there's no real end goal, right?
Yeah.
Because I searched them, I did a little cheat here, right? With the quote saying, my only hope, like saying they are parasites, blah, blah, blah. My only hope is that they kill one another before they kill us.
Well, that's the other thing I was going to say, actually. The other way Orc Wars typically fall apart is due to infighting building up, because it is made up of a bunch of groups that all hate each other, but are just afraid of the biggest guy. If he goes missing, the army's still there, they can still fight. But as soon as he's gone, they're like, fuck you, Dave, and just go back to fighting the other people in the Orc army they hated.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. So those are the two ways Orc Wars typically end.
Yeah.
So Wa has another meaning, which is it's the name for Orc magic.
Yeah, the energy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Orcs typically aren't aware of having psychic powers, except the
They just
weird
do
boys.
it. Yeah, I know that. Yes.
Yeah, it's subconscious magic. But the weird boys know they can do it. They're like a shaman. So to me, it seems like all Orcs have a very low yield psychic presence, but when they all get together, it becomes huge. So the Wa magic can be used to power vehicles, weapons. It can empower the Orcs. It makes them stronger when they're in a big group like that, and they're all fighting for the same cause. And you know the mech arms and stuff that they can have, the augments they can have due to injury. The Wa magic also powers those things as well. So if a human picks up an Orc gun and then they like study it, typically it appears to be a pile of junk vaguely welded into the shape of a gun. And it does nothing. It is just a lump of metal. But you put it in the hands of an Orc and they'll blow your head off with it. Because it's basically just powered by their belief that it works.
I mean, that is overpowered, but amazing.
Yeah. It's great. So they can take your gun, but you can't take theirs.
That's cool.
Yeah, but it works like that for most Orc technology. Like, their helicopters should not fly.
It defies all logic, but it works.
That's it. Basically, yeah, they think it flies, so it fucking flies. So, like, if your car runs out of fuel, if you're an Orc and you're driving it and it starts to run out of fuel and you're like, nah, I know I fueled this. I'll just keep going.
Bro, I swear to God, Walt Disney, yeah, he was an Orc. If you could dream it, you can believe it, or do it, right? Whatever the quote is, right?
Or my other favorite one is, if you believe that you haven't run out of ammo, your gun will keep firing.
Oh God, that's a cheat. They don't have to reload.
Right? Yeah, you can just keep shooting. But also, some colours have traits attributed to them, which I'm sure I have mentioned before. But I found like a series of like an explanation from an Orc about it, which I loved. All Orc colours are simple. The red ones go faster. Yellow makes you richer and more dackier. The black ones make you tougher. The blue makes you luckier. Purple makes you sneaky. White makes you deaf killy. And green is the best. So I'm going to explain those. Right? Red represents speed. So technically, painting something red actually makes it go faster.
What?
If you paint your car red, it will now be faster than it was before.
Let's go.
Because red things are faster. Yellow makes you richer and dackier, which means that yellow is the color for wealth and firepower. So if you paint your gun yellow, more firepower. If you paint something yellow, it becomes more valuable.
Oh my god.
Right? Black makes its things tougher. So you know the Goths, the like hand-to-hand special, or the close quarter specialist clan. Everything they own is black. They just love painting things black because it's the color that makes things tougher.
Yeah.
So that they'll black war paint on their face and armor and weapons and stuff, and it all just becomes more durable and stronger.
Yeah, and look cool.
It looks cool too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Purple makes you sneaky. Orcs have claimed nobody has ever seen a purple orc before. So apparently it makes you stealthier and harder to see. White was the really confusing one because there's a whole quote about it. I had no idea what the fuck it meant. I had to look it up properly after reading these quotes. Basically, white makes things deadlier.
Wait, what?
Yeah, white makes things deadlier. If you paint something white, it becomes deadlier.
Huh.
I don't know what form that takes. I don't know if that's like if you paint your axe white and then you hit someone with it, does it like act as if it's sharper? Or is it like a poison effect? Or what? I don't know. Apparently it just makes things better at killing things.
I mean, nice.
Yeah, not really sure exactly how that takes a form, but whatever. And just green is the best, because orcs are green and that's the rules.
That sounds like, yeah, something we shouldn't get into.
Yeah. And then you've got the weird boys also can throw around psychic magic like the normal psychers can as well. Just so you know.
Yeah.
That's their whole gimmick, is being weird boys. So the last thing I want to kind of get into is just talking about some notable orcs. So the most notable is obviously the Beast from the War of the Beast, the one that was like 30 meters tall or some nutjob nonsense like that. Remember the one that Vulcan bodied into
I was about to say
a
the
generator?
One, yeah. Wait. No, I'm thinking about something else. Never mind.
What are you thinking of?
I'm thinking about the one, not with Vulcan, but with the Horus, the one Horus threw out of.
No, that's a different guy actually. Hold on, that's the one from Ulanor, the one that started the crusade. Hold on, I had this guy's name.
I was about to say that's a notable one.
It definitely is actually. I kind of just forgot to add him in. I saw it. Where is his name?
You see, I'm not a noob anymore, Ryan. I know some stuff. Right?
There you go. Urlak Urg. That's the one that got yeeted from the battlements.
Yeah, but I mean, though he got his ass kicked right in the end, he was a notable one.
He was. You're right.
It is in a very important time of Warhammer. So
you're right.
Yeah.
My mistake. I should have known. I should have involved him.
Welcome to the Iterators, where Miss is the expert of Warhammer. I'm kidding.
So then you've got the Beast, the gigantic one that Vulcan tackled into a generator and blew up, who still lived. He was the one that was basically an Orc Emperor. He had Primarchs and stuff like that.
Nice.
Yeah, he was a cool guy. You know what, actually, right? Do you remember during... I'm sure when we were talking about, I'm sure that's the section where the High Lords of Terra rounded up a ton of civilians, outfitted them with terrible weaponry, and sent them up there as like a religious war, and they just died. Just sent thousands upon thousands of humans on a ship to be murdered by orcs. Because they were terrible, and that's why everyone always fires the High Lords of Terra whenever they end up in charge. I'm waiting for the Emperor to come back and just be like, "You're all fired, get out."
Yeah.
There's a running joke that the only reason the Emperor is still technically alive on the gold throne is because the orcs believe he is. The orcs believe the Emperor's still alive, so he is.
Oh, and the Emperor hates magic, so you know.
I just found that really funny.
That's ironic.
Yeah. Okay, so a couple of really funny orcs. There's Tuska, Demon Killer. So this dude used a bunch of the weird boys to get past the Cadian defenses to get into the Eye of Terror, because he wanted to find demons to fight, because they're tougher than most things he could find otherwise.
Yeah.
He eventually crashed in a demon planet of Khorne, owned by a demon prince called Blood Prince. Right? Naturally, that demon prince was pretty pissed off with a green monster on his planet, took all of his demonic horde to go attack the orc horde that just landed. And just all-out war took place. And it ended with Tuska having the weird boys distract Blood Prince so that Tuska could impale him with his claw, but while the demon prince was, like, you know, impaled, they just murdered the orc.
Oh, God.
Yeah. So, funny thing about it is, Khorne enjoyed that battle so much, that ridiculously murderous, bloody battle, so much, that the next morning when dawn came, he raised them all from the dead and had them do it again. And he does this every day. So there's an orc constantly locked in battle against demonic hordes, and he is the happiest goddamn orc on the planet.
I mean, he's living his best life, right?
That's it. He has exactly what he needs out of life. That's all any orc has ever wanted. Endless bloody war.
That he always wins. That's amazing.
Well, he doesn't technically win. I think it's technically stalemate. I don't know if he actually kills the demon. I think he just impales it. I don't think he quite gets how demons work.
Wait, and orcs only grow when they win, right?
Yes, but it doesn't mean winning a battle, it means winning a fight. So it's not like they're raised up and then immediately it's him on the demon prince again. It's raised up and then the hordes fight each other again. And those two are both part of it. So he would constantly be getting bigger as he fought his way through the hordes of demons to get to the big one again. To try and kill him this time.
Yeah.
To be fair, he's probably killed him a few times, actually. It's probably, like, sitting around 50-50 at this point with the amount of times they've done it.
Yeah.
They're probably just battling over, who gets the winner's spot. And Khorne's like, no, best two out, it's like, best 2 out of 3, and then kind of evens out, and Khorne's just like, alright, 5 out of 7, keep going. Just keeps doing
Entertain me.
One day the orc gets up and he's like, are you not entertained?
Right,
and then gets crushed.
I mean, yeah.
If you look away for 1 second in one of these battles, man, you're fucked. So I like that guy. He's a pretty cool one. I like the idea that if he is just getting bigger from winning fights against all these demons all the time, one day he's just going to be found, this gigantic, monstrous orc.
I mean,
Gork, Mork, and now Tuska, because he's big enough.
I was about to say, then surely he becomes the third member, right?
Probably, yeah.
Oh, God.
Which would be really funny. Another one that I found that was really funny is Wazdaka Gutsmek. Right?
That name.
Yeah. He was one of the evil sons. He was a mech boy, so he was one of their mechanics. And he ended up joining the Cult of Speed because he got really into his cars and bikes and stuff. And then because he joined the Cult of Speed and he was a bit too obsessive, he got exiled from the evil sons. And now he just rides around murdering people on his war bike, which is named the Bike of the Apocalypse.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And he takes so many drugs to stay awake all the time. So he's just riding around on this gigantic, heavily customized war bike, off his mind on drugs. And he once destroyed a warlord-class titan single-handedly, and then took the skulls of the crew, set them on fire, and put them on the back of his bike as a trophy. Orcs are nuts, man. It's great, I love these guys.
They're kind of cool, you know. I like the orcs.
Yeah.
They're my favorites.
Yeah. So that's a general overview, like a good bit about the orcs. We could probably get into more about them if we wanted to now, without being much hassle.
Yeah.
Yeah. So should be all right with that, which is good. For the record, I was hoping you wouldn't get the quote because I had a joke I wanted to make.
Okay.
But no, I'm just going to keep the joke running until you get one of the quotes wildly wrong. So, I don't know which race we're going to look at next for this stuff. I have got a whole ass list of them. I've got the wheel spinny thing as well.
Ooh.
So, would you like to spin the wheel to find out what race we look at next?
I mean, I think we should actually talk about that later and decide that by ourselves, because what we want to do as well is introduce some visuals to these episodes in season 2. And I feel like the listeners and soon to become viewers would enjoy watching the wheel as well, because like we can just say what it lands on, and technically they wouldn't know if it's true, right?
That's a good point.
So I think we should keep that for the next time, Ryan. And in the meantime, they can just wonder what we are going to be talking about in this fantastic fantasy world. You like that, yeah?
I did. I liked how your voice just really started to get really quiet and trailed off at the end there.
That's good.
I think that's enough on Orkz for today.
All right. Do you want to finish this episode then, Ryan?
Oh, God, I don't know how to do that. I'm not qualified for that. I just talk about orcs and shit.
You're going to have to handle it, man.
Aye, it's fine. Well, thank you guys for listening to the first episode of Season 2 of the Iterators of the Imperium podcast. I mean, we will see you in the next one. Take care and peace.
Bye.